The love for our aggressors comes out of fear. What I mean by that, you know, a very peculiar thing happens. You ever ask yourself the question, the Europeans enslaved us, hundreds of thousands of our ancestors died on the ships coming over here, and some of you youngsters and others, when you have a chance to read about how the African was transported over to this country, if it doesn't fill you with hurt and tears, then of course I don't know, it's hard to describe what you would be. Take time and read this kind of situation where people had to go for weeks at a time with no headroom, with maybe about this much room between them and the floor, where they could never stand up, where they laid down on the rough planks and the sea, as it moved the ship, rubbed the very skin and meat off their bones, where they had to lay in their own urination and their own defecation, where they were chained often to people who were dead next door to them and so forth. Look at that kind of thing. You see, many of us can only love our enemies because we haven't read it and we've forgotten. Many of us don't want to read it because it does fill us with anger and hatred and fear and so forth. Many of us avoid Black history because we try to avoid the fear and the anger and the bad feelings it's going to produce in us. But when we avoid it, it also means that we avoid knowing ourselves and who we are as a people. Of course, the slavery is another adventure. Jim Crowism, racial discrimination, all of this. Yet at the end of all of this, why is it that we want to marry these people? Why is it that we want to sleep with them and live with them and roll with them? Why is it that we just forget all of the things that they have done to our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the things they're doing to us right now and the things they're going to do to us in the future? You see, why do we do that, you see? Why do we want hair like them? Why do we want noses like them? Why do we want skin color like them? Why do we want to talk like them and walk like them and be like them after they have done all of this kind of stuff to us as a people? Why do we love them more than we love ourselves? Have you ever thought about that kind of issue? And yet this happens all the time. And it is a very standard thing in psychology. We call it love for the aggressor, identity with the aggressor, where one loves the one that persecutes them in an unhealthy sort of way and identifies with the person that persecutes them. This goes on in families. We don't have time to go into the psychological details of this, but this is a part of what Freud talked about when he talked about the Oedipus complex. That his theory is that the boy comes to be like his father because the boy hates his father. And it's a very interesting kind of concept there. He wants to get rid of his father. Then how does he come to be like his father, we say? Because if he comes out and actually tells his father how much he hates him, the father might do what? Destroy him. You see, he's dependent upon his father. He needs his father. And that need and dependency, that fear that his father will hurt him or destroy him, the fact that he feels weak relative to his father, then sets him up to say, I can't express my hatred. I can't express my hostility. And yet this hostility is tearing me apart. This hatred is tearing me apart. How can I get rid of it? And he gets rid of it by saying, then, I'll do what my father says do. I'll be like my father. If I think the way my father thinks, if I behave the way my father behaves, if I look at the world the way my father looks at it, if I have the values that my father has, if I be as much like my father as possible, then I will escape my father's punishment and death. If I can show my father that I love him, that I'm the same as he, then then my father will not victimize me. And it's a peculiar theory, but it has some interesting aspects about it. To a good extent, the relationship between African peoples and white people is a father-child relationship. We think of ourselves as weak, powerless against the white man. We see him as the source of gifts, the source of blessing. He gives us the jobs, he gives us the protection, he gives us the food, he provides the water, he provides the housing, he provides this, he provides that. You see? And we also think because we're weak, we cannot go directly against him to destroy him, even though he hurts us, even though he degrades us, even though he frustrates us, even though he enslaves us and discriminates against us. We still don't quite get up the drive to say, well, I'm going to destroy this person who degrades me and who is destroying me. Because we feel as if we need him in some kind of way, that we can't live without him. He also tells us that you suffer because you have a different color. You suffer because you have a different kind of shaped nose. You suffer because you have a different hair. You suffer because you come from Africa. You suffer because you don't look like me. And what do we go for then? We say, well, if I want to get out of this suffering, then I should be as much like him as possible. As a matter of fact, if I get so much like him where he can't tell the difference between me and himself, he won't punish me anymore. I will no longer be, what? A victim. So therefore, we are motivated then to come outside of ourselves, to move toward the person that is destroying us and victimizing ourselves, hoping that if we can get them to love us, and if we can show them how much we love them, and if we show them how much alike we can be, we can get them to not see us as colored. You know, look at me, don't look at me as a black person, look at me as a person. You know, to abstract us. In other words, in order for other people to love us, they must not see the blackness of our skins. They must see some kind of invisible abstraction before them.